But maybe first we will talk about what happens between two cultivation cycles when you reuse the growing media. So we would expect that sanitation is really needed for reducing the risk of pathogens and weed seeds. So in the trials we have done, we tested a combination of steam sanitation during some minutes, a very short steam sanitation at quite high temperatures. And then we store the material in a heap for at least 1 hour. And in order to have 70 degrees at least for 1 hour, it's like a European standard of sanitation. And we have also tested strategy for weed seeds and pathogens. And we tested whether they were killed during this steam treatment and storage. And it was effective, so we could really say that we have a good sanitation in this process. However, there are a lot of variants of sanitation which we have not tested. And well, that should be mentioned at least, because you can do only the steam treatment without the storage at high temperatures, or you can only shred maybe the spent growing media. Maybe that will also partly sanitize already the material. Maybe there are other sanitation treatments that we are not yet aware of, or that are maybe not yet tested for spent growing media. But also the way the way you store growing media after the first cultivation can really affect maybe the fate of weed seeds and pathogens. For instance, if you let the growing media dry out completely and then you store it completely dry, it may really affect what is happening in terms of microbiology and pathogens, weed seeds in this material. Maybe if you have like cold storage, or the material is frozen during winter because you are in a very cold situation, it can also affect microbiology. Maybe you will store the material outside in heaps and you will get temperature spontaneously in these heaps. That can also affect sanitation. Or maybe wet storage and grow bags or trays. This very wet storage can maybe reduce the oxygen presence, and it can really affect also a lot of characteristics. And maybe also the length of storage can be quite important. So these are a lot of variables which are still unexplored or may affect the effectiveness of the sanitation of your material. What we also have seen, we have tested the combination of shredding and this steam sanitation, as explained before. But we also wanted to see whether it affected the characteristics of the spent horticultural substrate. And for wet horticultural substrates, so moist materials, we didn't see really any big or concrete, very specific effects on the characteristics. So the quality remained during this shredding and steam sanitation, while it was quite clear that when we had very dry materials in this process, we lost quite a lot of organic matter. And we think that it mainly happened during the shredding, so that you have like dust formation because the material is dry, and you get dust losses, and mainly the organic fines, which are very light, they disappear during this process. So you lose actually your organic matter from the material. So what about the processes and the decisions you need to make about reusing growing media? If a grower wants to directly reuse his own spent growing medium, he can decide whether sanitation is needed or not based on the observations in the first cultivation. If there were no real problems with diseases or weed seeds, he can decide just to reuse it as it is. Then he can decide whether he includes plant biomass or not. I would advise not to do it, but it's the choice of the grower, of course. It's already operational in Belgium. And in this situation, you can like completely reuse the material. So there is a lot of material still present. If you transport it to another grower for reusing it for another crop at another location, I think sanitation should be is really necessary there. You don't want to transpose risks from one grower to another. But also here, the question is to include plants or not. It's also already operational in Belgium, and also in this case, you can really reuse a lot of material. For thermal treatment, for sanitation, yeah, it's of course sanitation that you do. I think it's maybe better not to include plant biomass to have a better process. And I heard from different companies that they are really doing investments or testing their installations at this moment to also have this processing. It maintains most of the material. And then we have the composting of the material. It's also a sanitation treatment. But here you really need the plants to have a good composting process. If you only have the spent growing media, they will not give a good composting process unless you add heat yourself. But if you want a normal green composting, you need green plants there. It's also already applied in Belgium. And here, well, you will lose material during composting, but it will mainly be the green material which is decomposed. I think the main of the spent growing media, they will still be there in the end.